When you don't have a sense of self, when you don't have a self identity, you rely on other people to define who you are. Narcs are extremely out of touch with themselves. And if you've been around one or with one long enough, it's scary because they mirror and copy people that they get in relationship with or people that they place value on. They mirror and copy interests, hobbies, traits, even values. It's like this constant hunt for people that have identities that they admire. So they adopt portions to construct this identity. It's a cycle. When a source of supply changes, they change their beliefs, their interests, their hobbies, their personality, their style in accordance to make sure they keep getting supply. Self-identity keeps you unique and distinguishes you. Hope this helps.
I had a professor who would say, a tiger does not need to speak about its stripes. The stripes are an inherent quality of the tiger. They're obvious. But a lot of the times, we're the tiger talking about our stripes. We start a new project, or we get a new car, or we buy new clothes, and we immediately tell anyone with ears, do you see what I'm doing? Do you like what I'm doing? Do you approve of what I'm doing? Now, it is wonderful to have excitement for all of the amazing things that unfold in our lives. And at the same time, we should be aware if we are pointing our stripes for external validation. So the desire for external validation is human. In fact, our brains get a shot of dopamine from it. But when we constantly seek external validation, it can cripple us internally. It can impact our self-esteem and cause insecurity.
People who are deeply insecure have an addiction, and that addiction is validation. And as long as you are validating and feeding the narrative that they want to believe about themselves or their world, you're great. But the moment that you set boundaries for yourself, the moment that you ask questions or give any pushback, that's when you have a problem. Because those people are more loyal to the sense of validation than they are to you. So they will go to the next person who validates them. They will seek relationships that increase their level of validation. And you can often be left by the wayside because of it. Because their loyalty is not to you, it's to the sense of validation. And this can leave you feeling betrayed. It can leave you feeling hurt. It can leave you feeling confused, angry, all of those things, right? Because whether this is happening in a friendship or a romantic relationship, you're thinking that your relationship is based on something solid, and it turns out that it was based on whatever narrative they needed to feed. And then it makes you feel like a supply versus a person. And it's a terrible gut-wrenching feeling. And the only way to really protect yourself is to have healthy boundaries in any of your relationships from the very beginning.
I'm a psychologist, and I'm going to change the way you think about seeking external validation forever. So imagine that external validation is like food in your fridge. So the only reason that you seek external validation is because your own fridge is empty. So you're seeking other people's food because you have no food yourself. But if you had food in your own fridge, if you had your own internal validation, then you wouldn't necessarily need to go seek food, external validation from other people. And this is how validation works. The more poor we are at validating our own selves, and the more critical our internal thoughts are, the more we're going to go seek the validation of others, because we need validation one way or another, just like we need food. We can't really exist without it. And so that's why a lot of us are so dependent on external validation, is because the internal validation does not exist. Like, there's no neuronal pathways for internal validation in our minds. or there's a lot of automatic criticism that happens in the mind. So for some people, this criticism is something that they can actually hear, like they're like super aware that they're criticizing themselves. For a lot of people, they're not aware of it. So they'll criticize themselves, and they'll only catch it when they come see someone like me and I point it out to them. I'm like, hey, that was pretty harsh. Like, you're speaking really harshly to yourself. So comment below if you're someone that can kind of hear your thoughts, or you don't really have that kind of awareness. I'm always curious to know about that one. But essentially, this is it. Like, you need to build up your own internal validation. Otherwise, you're always going to seek external validation. And that's an awful way to live, because it's super inconsistent. Like, people are just inconsistent. So if you're relying on them for that validation, there's going to be many times where you feel awful because you're just not able to get it. If this is you and you want to build up that internal validation, feel free to book an intro session with me, and we can talk about some strategies that you can start using.
Looking for validation from a man is seeking attention from a man that was not earned. I'll repeat that. A man should automatically see you and think, wow, that's a beautiful woman. You should not have to seek it out. It should be just like a child. When your aunt, your uncle, your cousin, strangers in the grocery store, oh my God, she's so cute. You should have the same reaction as that child. I know, but don't say it out loud. Just think it. Like, it shouldn't faze you. The child does not get extra excited and want to go home or talk to this person for several hours, or, pay for their meal because they said the child was cute. It's something that they already know within. Why? Because one, they've heard it so many times before, and two, they agree. It's only those who don't believe or agree or don't hear it very often that continue to seek the validation. Okay, so that must mean you're not leveled up enough. So keep leveling up. The more you level up, the less validation you will seek. People seek validation when they don't feel they deserve it. So keep on going.
People who constantly seek validation actually make really bad partners in a relationship, because they can't handle just getting attention from one person. Now, the reason why this is bad is because they end up making friends with people that they find attractive, and vice versa, that kind of give them that validation while they're in a relationship, which essentially leads to emotional cheating and problems in their relationship. So that's just something to keep in mind, especially if you're dating someone that is in the limelight, or it's just a part of their career and they get attention from people. They might have a hard time going into a relationship and not getting that validation from other people. It'll just come from one person, so they have a harder time staying committed and not cheating. Even just like emotional cheating is still cheating. If this video helped, follow me for more. Bye.
All right, family, we're going to get through this one a lot faster than usual, just to spare y'all the pain. Let's do 7 signs that you are indeed hooked to external validation. Let's get into it. Number 1, you always feel a need to be needed by others. Yeah. Number 2, you find it difficult to celebrate your own achievements. Number 3, you feel better about yourself when you are in a relationship. Okay, yeah, I told y'all this ain't gonna be pretty. Number 4, you're upset by others' disapproval of you. Next, please. Number 5, you're always doing things for others even when you don't have the desire to do so. That's called people pleasing. Number 6, you become bitter about people's lack of appreciation for you. That's the consequences of people pleasing. And number 7, there is no no in your vocabulary.
People who seek validation are people who believe that validation is protection. People who are constantly seeking recognition from others believe that getting validation from them will keep them safe and make them feel loved. Trauma completely affects the way that we search for love and safety. But I'm gonna tell you this now, You're never going to find love and safety through the validation of another person.
Peace and love, flowers. Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Monica, aka the Sunflower Oracle. How y'all blooming today? I hope these messages find you well, bring you truth, clarity, and confidence in your journey. Please make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe if you like the vibe here. Join this beautiful tribe, blossoming and blooming to their highest and fullest potential. I have a channeled message for you guys. So take the energy as it resonates. Don't force anything to fit your situation, as energies can be past, present, future, or the roles can be reversed, or this just simply isn't your story. All right. I have not done any shadow energy in a while. I feel like I've been channeling a lot of love and light in the last however many videos I done posted. So in the future, near future, I'm going to do what is their karma video. But I got a channel message yesterday or 2 days ago that I wanted to bring to the garden. Beloved wanted me to speak on it with the collective. Okay, and the channel message that I got was looking for validation in anything other than the divine source is karmic energy. All right, now this can be if you have a karmic person, a karmic situation, a karmic job, whatever the situation is. Whatever you are holding on to that you are seeking validation in, from, whatever is no longer serving you, that energy is codependent energy. And we're going to try to talk about a little bit what codependency is, what it looks like. And then we're going to talk about how you can break that. We're going to get some messages from the ancestors, angels, spirit guides, from beloved, in order for you guys to overcome this. Okay, now like I said, you could be dealing with a karmic person, place, or thing, or you yourself could be in some type of karmic energy. This doesn't necessarily have to be this is just a karma situation. This when karma, because karma is not only what you do, it's karma is what you don't do or what you didn't do. Okay, so let's break it down a little bit. So the message, looking for validation in anything other than the divine source is karmic energy. When you're looking for validation in someone else, you often look for validation through money. You try to, nice cars, nice house, nice clothes, overworking, overspending, okay, trying to prove to yourself or to others around you that you have money, that you have worth, that you have value, that you have status. Living beyond your means is another form of trying to find validation. Okay, when you are looking for this validation, and you're in this codependent energy, by definition, it restricts a person's ability to be whole, fulfill their potential, and be healthy due to self-neglect with the aim of receiving love, validation, or approval. All right, by definition, by the books, the definition of codependency. All right, so codependency is usually rooted from childhood. A lot of our childhood traumas, a lot of codependent issues, trauma stems from how we were raised, how our parents raised us, how they reacted to us. When your emotions are ignored or punished by your parents, it results in low self-esteem, self-worth, and shame. You don't feel validated. You don't feel validated, and your parents are usually the first people that come to that validate you, that show you that you care, that your opinion matters, that you're smart, that you're beautiful, that you're capable, that you have potential, that they see something in you. Okay, and when your parents kind of ignore even just the small things, as you're, when you were a child, they ignore that painting, or they didn't come to to your games, or they didn't support your competitions, or they didn't teach you, I don't know, how to drive, or there's always put other people, maybe other siblings above you. They just didn't have enough time for you. Whatever the case may be, where they just worked too much and they felt like you could always be doing better, or you're not as good as your sister, or you're not as athletic as your brother, like whatever, like what the fuck ever, So this in turn, as you go about your years, you start to kind of allow certain behaviors, allow certain codependent behaviors, allows certain codependent energy to kind of manifest in your life, because that's all you know. That's all you've been kind of groomed to know, to understand. So let's talk about some characteristics of codependency, so that you guys know what it looks like, so that we can better break these kind of cycles, to kind of change. All right, 555 on the clock. So let's see. Characteristics of codependency. I'm actually going to leave a link to the site where I got this information. This is just kind of bullet points really quick, because I still wanted to get some message for you guys, okay? Characteristics of codependency. You can be hyper aware of other people's needs to avoid being blamed for their unhappiness, for someone else's unhappiness. You are, I feel like a couple of these go hand in hand, but I get people pleaser energy off of that very heavy. Like you don't want to be the bad guy, or you don't want to be the bad cop, or you don't want to be blamed. It was your fault, you did this is why, so and so and so. You learned that very early on in childhood, that that people pleasing, that when you because this is what I was talking about, kind of going hand in hand. In childhood, having a preference or speaking up was punished, so you quickly learned that letting others have their way spared you from that pain. You didn't like, in childhood, if you voice your opinion that you didn't like something, or you didn't want to do something, or that you just simply, as you got older, you started to stand up for yourself, have a little voice, kind of contradict what your parents may have said, or what they might have thought, and that was punished. And that should never be the case in your household. Like, children are people too. Children are little people. All right, they're little people, and they have opinions, they have voices, they matter. I'm actually thinking about working on a spiritual like awakening book for children, in a pathway into their spirituality, so they kind of know what things look like, because children are very, very spiritual, and it isn't until we get older and we get brainwashed by the matrix that all that kind of those natural downloads that you get when you're in the womb, that natural the natural language of the ethers. When babies come out, they don't speak English. They don't speak any language. They speak Babel. They speak the language. I feel like I got a download one day that I feel like baby Babel is the original language. It's the language of the ethers. And whatever dialect that we were diluted with to speak, we were stripped away from our natural language. So our connection, our source, our language, the letters, even down to the simple letters, the words that we use, the pronunciation of words that we use, that's all intentional. Like literally today, all of that is intentional, because it's a diluted version of us, of the natural, instinctual, original kind of energy, kind of language that we were born in. Like I was saying, as a child, and when you're in the womb as a fetus, if you think about it, everything is born in a womb. Everything is born in darkness, and it grows in darkness. So yeah, it's just being in, I forgot where my train of thought was going with that. All right, so being aware of that, being aware of that pain, of the, I don't know where I was going with that, but being aware of your pain, of being not validated, that darkness. You don't want to be blamed. You don't want to be blamed for other people's unhappiness, all right? So you believe love and pain are synonymous, okay? Believing love and pain are synonymous. You feel like being hurt, being disrespected, being chastised, being used, abused is the same as somebody loving you, because that's all that you knew, that's all that you learned in childhood. That's all that you knew, that's all that you learned in childhood. Your self-esteem, you allow disrespect from friends, family, and romantic partners. You saw how your parents reacted to situations, or you saw how your parents handled certain things, and the way they may have manipulated things or people, or said certain things in order for them to get their way. All right. How some people may have allowed certain behavior in order to not deal with the conflict. Like maybe your dad was quick to temper, so your mom just learned to kind of hush and push things under the rug so that there was no conflict, so they weren't arguing in front of you guys, but y'all still saw it. Like I said, kids are smart, okay? Kids are very, very smart. I feel like that's what I was talking about. Kids are very, 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 very smart, and once you come into the matrix and you learn about, you see kind of how people operate in this dimension, it just kind of takes everything away from the natural essence, the natural way of living, of the universal laws and principles, okay? So when you see people around you growing up doing and behaving a certain way, then you kind of reflect that, and that's going to be your environment, until you either unlearn that behavior, you and intentionally make a change. You're going to continue to kind of continue those cycles, continue that pattern, because it's all you know. It's all you know, okay? So another characteristic of codependency, your self-esteem and your self-worth are dependent on those you are trying to please. You overschedule yourself with other people's priorities to prove your worth. You overbook yourself. You overbook yourself with other people's priorities in order to prove your wealth, that you are not a sidestepper, that you are not lazy, that you are not incapable, that you are not inadequate, that you are not worthless. You try to, like, yeah, I got a lot going on. Yeah, I'm doing this, this, and that. Yeah, I can attend to everybody. Doesn't anybody have to feel neglected? Because I know how it feels to be neglected. I don't want to neglect anybody because I know how that feeling is, and I don't like that feeling. I want to take on that role. You become this kind of emotional impact where, like I said, you kind of you're hyper aware of other people's needs. You're hypersensitive to other people's feelings and thoughts and emotions, and you easily pick up on that. You're very emotionally empathetic, very high emotional intelligence, and this can kind of leave you always on edge about stuff, feeling anxious, worried, like there's just more to do or more to say or more to be. You will find that you lack boundaries. You will find that you lack boundaries. You have a hard time saying no. You have a hard time dismissing people. You have a hard time putting up a wall, putting up a boundary and sticking to it. Saying that you're not going to do something or not going to allow something, and then you start to think about it. Oh, well, they're going to be mad at me. Oh, well, I can only imagine how they feel. I know how I would feel in the situation. So you start thinking about all this other stuff, and then you start to blame yourself. And again, you start to feel guilt and shame for things you didn't even do. You didn't do nothing. But you start to blame yourself. You start to get in this very codependent energy of, well, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to need to feel some type of space, some type of void that I didn't have before in childhood, so that I can feel worthy, so that people can see my worth, so that people can see my value. They weren't able to see it growing up, and I'm going to make them see me now, and I'm going to be here for everybody like they were not here for me, okay? I'm going to listen to everybody like they didn't listen to me. I'm not going to be my parents. I'm not going to be my parents and ignore problems, other people's problems, my children's problems. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, you know, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, family, but at the same rate, there has to be a balance, all right? The laws of the universe require duality, all right? Polarity. Everything has to have an opposite. Everything has to have 1551, as I say, that everything has to have a balance, a scale, okay? So you can't be too much of a giver and not receive. You can't allow space for giving, and then don't receive, okay? You can't always complain about not having any help, but then don't want any help. Like you want to do it all by yourself. Like you feel like you're better off doing things by yourself. Well, if that's the case, then don't make other people feel incapable of helping you, okay? Let me finish up because I do want to give you guys some messages. You won't let others help you. You don't trust anyone. You have a hard time trusting. Trust me, sweetie. I'm a Scorpio. Okay, I'm suspicious of everybody. I got my eye on you. All right. So sometimes that just is what it is, but yeah, being codependent characteristic, you can have trust issues because you just seen stuff, and you've kind of felt stuff, and you've kind of seen how things can play out and what things can look like. So you just kind of have you've seen things in people, so you're gonna have a hard time trusting their true intentions, okay? Finally, unrealistic expectations. Like I said, you're a martyr, or you feel rejection and criticism. You fear rejection, criticism, and failure, okay? So let's get some messages from the ancestors.
If you want to know how to be confident and how to stop looking for validation from others, you need to realize this one thing. When you want other people to tell you that you're doing a good job, that they're proud of you, that you're smart, you're kind, you're beautiful, that is little you, baby you inside, looking for the love and validation that they didn't receive growing up in childhood. Your current conundrum is that if someone else is not telling you that you're doing a good job, if someone else is not telling you that you're pretty, if someone else is not telling you that you're smart, then you start to question your worth. But it's not healthy to constantly base our self-perception on what other people think of us. So what do? Realize that the child inside of you is waiting to be showered with love and affection from you. Maybe you want your parents to tell you that they're proud of you, but they're just not going to do that. What you do is you close your eyes and visualize adult you talking to little you. You're telling her everything she needs to hear in that moment, that you're proud of her, that you believe in her, that you've got her back and you're rooting for her every step of the way. Anytime someone misunderstands you and thinks that you're unkind or not a good person, visualize adult you telling little you how you see her good intentions, you see her heart, you know that she has flaws, but you're proud of how she's working on them. Keep doing this, and that loving voice from within is going to become louder than any external voices. And when that happens, you know you've become a master of self-validation.
So let's talk about self-validation. When it comes to validating yourself, people were always doing it. You're either validating positive things about yourself, neutral things about yourself, or negative things about yourself. It comes down to trust and whether or not you trust your own perspective. And because it's your perspective and you say, I don't trust myself, you trust that you don't trust yourself. Like if you can walk around and go every time you're in a certain group setting, right, with a certain group of friends, and you always feel weird about half of them and half of the interactions, but every time you say something, people go, oh, you're reading too deeply into stuff, and you go, oh man, yeah, I guess I do, like, ugh, I'm always doing that, yada yada yada. Trust that in that moment, it's not that you trust other people, it's that you trust that you can't trust yourself. So you can simply choose to trust yourself. I trust my perspective. Like, what's the worst that could happen? You trust your perspective and you end up being on the wrong side of an argument. That's a learning experience. A lot of times not trusting or validating ourselves comes from not wanting the consequences of what we fear. But not wanting to have consequences means not wanting to have action that creates consequences, which means standing stagnant and still, which means you don't ever have enough data about yourself and how you act or how things play out in life for you to build that trust and build the ability to be able to validate yourself. And I'll say this from personal experience. I've always been very self-validating simply because if I felt something, to me, it's really wild for me to like feel a weird vibe and then be like, I didn't feel that vibe. I can't gaslight myself. I'll just drive myself crazy gaslighting myself. And if I'm driving myself crazy, then I'm like, oh yeah, there's definitely something up. Because if there wasn't anything up, I wouldn't be busy driving myself crazy about it. So then step 2 is to do something like morning pages. Early in the morning, if you wake up, write down what your dreams are, and then write like 3 pages. I keep saying The Artist's Way is a great book for learning how to really heal yourself as a creative person. More so than it just about being an artist, so to speak. The Artist's Way, yeah. But morning pages are something that you can do that will really help you learn how to validate yourself. Because either a few things are going to happen. You're going to look at a blank page and then you're not going to want to know what to write. I don't know what to write down. Yeah, you do. Write down what bothers you. That's simple enough. A lot of people these days have a lot of problems that bother them. Start with what bothers you. Oh, I don't feel like doing that. No, yeah, you do. You just don't want to, because then you'd have to validate how you actually feel about what bothers you. So then sometimes another thing happens where people will write stuff down and then they only write down a little bit of stuff. Because if you were to write down everything, you'd be validating how you feel. Or you might write down things and then you make excuses for all of the reasons. Well, I know that I felt this, but it's because this, and this, and then you're driving yourself crazy because you're saying, well, this happened, but also this, as if you have to explain to yourself the nuances of why you feel how you feel. That is what I call when you argue with energy that's not in the room, where you're trying to convince someone that you're not being unempathetic, that you are considering someone else's perspective, that you are considering these other aspects of what was going on. You are, like, who are you arguing with? Who are you arguing with? And that's a real question. Who are you arguing with? Because that's probably who's invalidating you. It's not yourself. We generally don't argue with ourselves. Like, generally, as human beings, our stasis is fairly neutral, and if anything, it borders on positive on a day that's not hindering you. When nature isn't, like, if you're sitting outside and it's nice and you're sitting under a shady tree and everything's green, you're generally net positive. If all of a sudden there is no shade, you're sitting outside on hot concrete, then you might be netting negative because it's super hot, right? Your environment is meh. But if left alone, you're fairly neutral. You don't generally argue with yourself. You're arguing with other people who aren't in the room because they've tried to manipulate the way that you think and the way that you act in some way. And so your natural state of being is having an argument because it's trying to preserve your true self. So morning pages will help you figure that out. And you can ask, who am I arguing with? Who told me this? Who told me that I don't consider other people? Who told me that I'm unempathetic? Who told me this, that, and the other? And then quickly it usually comes up because you've heard this person say this over and over and over and over to the point where now you're arguing with them even though they're not in the room. So yeah, it can also be extremely difficult to validate yourself when you're so used to validating other people's opinions instead of your own. And just know that will be difficult. But like, you can't let your feelings about letting someone else down by not validating their opinion in your head stop you from validating your own life and lived experience. because usually that's what that is. It's the leftover resonant feedback of, if I deny them, something negative will happen to me. But 9 times out of 10, that person usually isn't even in the room with you. And if they are, it says something. That if you have to deny their perspective about your perspective, like you say, I feel weird about this. No, you're just not considering. If somebody says no to your lived perspective, it's not probably a safe place for you to express yourself honestly, because they're dismissing it right off bat. And I'm not talking about those gentle, like disagreeing arguments where someone else is heated and you're heated, and you guys have to agree to like take some time for a minute to sit down and calm down because I don't feel heard. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I'm just really upset because I don't feel heard. Okay, well, let's take a few minutes to calm down. I'm not talking about those types of arguments. I'm talking about the kind where it's not even really an argument. You may state something and someone dismisses what you say because their perspective of you trumps how you actually are, or how you actually feel, or what you actually think, or what your actual intention is. When someone else is dictating what your intentions, what your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions are based on their worldview, it's a pass. Not because like their assumptions may not be right, but it's the fact that they feel entitled to that instead of asking and being informed by you from that. So you may feel uncomfortable invalidating that person for whatever reason, but it's time to get comfortable in validating other people for the sake of validating yourself. How do you feel? And, start off small. Morning pages, write about it.